The state of yoga in India. Well, in the West, let's begin with the West. In the West, we've taken yoga to really mean very much just the physical postures. The real meaning of yoga, if you go back to actually just the Sanskrit root of the word, it means to join, to connect, to unite. That's what the word means. And so we tend to think of it as this union of, my nose to my knee. If I could just, in Jana Shirsasana, get my nose down to my knee, then I would feel great about myself. Then I'd be a good yogi. If I could just touch my toes in Uttanasana, if I could have this union of my fingertips to my toes. But that's not the union that yoga means. Yoga ultimately is the union of the self to the divine. And all of the aspects of yoga are just ways to get there. And so if you look at the 8 limbs of yoga that Patanjali gave, it begins with how we live in the world. It begins with the yamas and the niyamas. Ahimsa, non-violence; satya, truthfulness; asteya, non-stealing. This is the foundation of yoga. Has nothing to do with your asanas. It has nothing to do with your breath practice. It has nothing to do with any of that. And everything to do with how you move in the world. And that's the foundation of yoga. And then we move up into the asanas, into the pranayama. But just as we don't begin with the asanas or the pranayama, similarly we don't end there. These 8 limbs go all the way up. The 8th limb is samadhi. And it's a movement from the outer to the inner. So we begin with how I move in the world. Ahimsa, non-violence, how I am with the world. And of course that doesn't just mean that I don't go out and shoot people. There's a lot of ways that we're violent that don't involve guns and knives or grenades or poison. The way we speak, not just to others, but to ourselves. A lot of our eating habits, a lot of our purchasing habits have ripple effects that are creating violence upon the earth, upon our water, upon our air. So that's how I move through the world, outer world and inner world. And then slowly, slowly, slowly we move up into samadhi, which is this oneness. So that's ultimately what yoga is. And whatever aspect we're practicing, to remember to practice it with that goal in mind. So if we're in Trikonasana, yes, of course, we have to remember leg straight, heel down. But all of that is in service of creating a stability of asana in which I can have an experience of yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna does a beautiful description of the asana. Now, he's referring to the asana upon which we sit. But it also can mean the position in which we are. And he goes into these details of what it should be made of and how thick it should be, how thin it should be, how soft it should be, how hard it should be. And at the end of that, he says, once you are established in asana, you are ready to begin the practice of yoga. Which makes it about as clear as I could imagine it being that the asana is not the yoga. Once you are established in asana, sitting on the asana or in the asana, either way, Once you are established in asana, established, stable, steady, firm, you're ready to begin the practice of yoga. So the asana is important, whether it's that upon which we sit or the posture we're in. But it's important because rooted in that stability of asana is our ability to begin the practice of yoga.